You are listening to Archive 81. This episode was made possible not by corporations, but by listeners like you.
So how long is it going to take you to fix the battery?
I think, you know what? Everything's good to go.
Okay, sorry to take so much of your time.
No. Take as much time as you need. We just want to hear all of your words.
It's a lot of words. It was 1980, and I was about to meet the love of my life. He was named Thomas, and that they were some sort of refugee Jonathan had encountered on his travels, and that I should avoid him. I met him. I walked over and looked into his eyes, and something just fell into place. I can't explain it.
What happened then?
We talked. My relationship with Thomas was exhilarating. It's difficult to put exactly into words, but he was this bright, shining ball of new and strange. We lived in the present. Thomas was so curious about everything, and he was so smart, naive, but he could grasp something, anything, so quickly. It was wonderful seeing New York through his eyes. To be fair, this was New York in the early 80s, but still, it had its charms, especially the village. I was still writing fiction. This was before I got the job at the magazine, and I'd read my stories to him. Always so insightful. It was like he knew what my deepest self was trying to say. And he was cute. And he was a musician, which I'm a sucker for. But he was actually good. Amazing, in fact. And I didn't know it until months into the whole thing. He brought a cello into our tiny apartment and said he was going to learn how to play. And he did. In a day. And the music he made, he started letting people record it after an ungodly amount of coaxing. No, I actually brought a tape, if you'd like to hear it.
Oh yeah, could you send me a WAV file? This would be great to use. We just want to make sure that we have a high quality version.
Oh, of course, I can send it to you whenever you like.
But you could definitely play it now if you want, especially if you think it'll help you tell your story.
Well, I'd really like for you to hear it. Can I...
Yeah, just right in there. You can do it right there.
He didn't record often, but he played for me.
We'll probably want to use that for the soundtrack.
Well, I'll make sure to send it to you. Towards the end, Thomas would tell me more about his past. It was still vague, and it was all somewhat hallucinatory. There was an incursion. There was fire in the sky. For, he said, forever, that it'll never go away. As if through a portal. Well, he didn't say as if, but, like I said, spiritual. He talked about it in mystical terms. Now, the one thing I didn't like about Thomas was how spiritual he was. He worked at this New Age place on 14th, and he'd always bring back crystals. We'd get in fights about it. Anyway, there was an incursion, some sort of outside force. He said they'd come suddenly. Poetic sentiment. But he left, and Jonathan found him, and then I found him. I knew it couldn't last. He was too everywhere at once, not one for stability. I clung to him as long as I could. Perhaps I was pathetic, but I had him for 2 years, and it was a joy. And one day he kissed me and said that he had to go back. And he looked me in the eyes and sang me a song and said that when I sang it to myself, I could follow him.
And did you sing it?
No. It felt, like I said, I'm not spiritual. I loved him. But I loved him in my world, in the village, in New York, in the 80s, in the stories I was writing, in the music that he played for me, if that makes sense. After he left, well, before he left, but I hadn't really noticed it, then there was a dark period. And you'll want to hear about it. That's the point of all this. I apologize for the tangent.
No, it paints a picture, and we want the audience to sympathize with you.
I'm afraid I'm not especially sympathetic.
No. Do you mind if I change the battery again? I just want to be really careful with this.
Of course. Wouldn't want to cut short the tragedy.
I'll just 1 second. Let me.